we are getting absolutely freaking clobbered at this point in fantasy football with injuries. So there's going to be some new faces, and there's also going to be some familiar faces returning to our top 30 rankings this week at the wide receiver position. But I'm doing everything I can to get us ready for week 7 fantasy football. So please go down there and drop a like on this video and subscribe to the channel to show your support. Now getting into our first tier, very exclusive. It's got to be safe for Amon-Ra St. Brown at number 1 and CeeDee Lamb possibly making the return at number 2. So Amon-Ra St. Brown, if you factor in all the injuries, right? Puka Nacua has the injury. Jamar Chase has the injury to the quarterback. CeeDee Lamb is still injured as well. Maybe he returns. I think that Amon-Ra St. Brown is not only the safest, but probably the best option this particular week versus the Tampa Bay Bucks. Because if you look at this offense and what they've done, obviously they didn't look as good against the Kansas City Chiefs. Well, the Kansas City Chiefs just have a better defense flat out than the Tampa Bay Bucks do. The Bucks are definitely prone to giving up big plays to the wide receiver position. And Amon-Ra St. Brown has been arguably better than most at that particular metric in 2025. So I do expect him to get back on the high horse this week and be a top 5 wide receiver, particularly number 1. And CeeDee Lamb's at number 2. If he makes his return, I don't want him as my wide receiver 1 in the rankings yet because we don't know how he's going to look. And obviously, I'm just projecting here if he's going to be available. But obviously, if he is available, I want in on this matchup number 1 versus the Washington Commanders. And I want in on CeeDee Lamb because the way Dak is playing right now, he's kind of a dark horse MVP. They're just not winning games like Baker Mayfield or Josh Allen are, for example. CeeDee Lamb and the Dallas Cowboys, they're going to be a match made in heaven once again because they always have been once he returns. So if he comes back this week, I'm all over CeeDee Lamb at number 2. Dropping down to our next tier, I've got Jackson Smith-Njigba at 3, and yes, Jamar Chase returns to the top 5, particularly at number 4, and of course, we'll dive into that one deeper. But with Jackson Smith-Njigba, here's the thing. I wanted to put him in tier 1, and if it was based on his play, I would be all over him as probably the number 1 receiver this week. But I think this week is one of those unique matchups where I have to take into account the matchup here. He's taking on the Houston Texans on Monday night, and Derek Stingley is coming off a bye week where he got healthier, and that is a corner that, when healthy, is absolutely factored in to wide receiver rankings. Jackson Smith-Njigba has been incredible. I've been the first to compliment the guy. I love JSN, but I don't love this matchup. This is one of those situations where, like Pat Surtain, like Quinyon Mitchell in Philadelphia, like Trent McDuffie in Kansas City, Derek Stingley worries me as a corner matchup for a wide receiver. But of course, JSN is the central focal point. Each and every week of this offense, he's got to be inside the top 3. And Jamar Chase taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers on Thursday night in Cincinnati. Listen, there's a couple of things that obviously we need to discuss here. Number 1, let me have it. Let me hear it, because I was very, very wrong about putting Jamar Chase outside of the top 15, the top 10, the top 5. He's just an elite player. And that's the thing that I just have to remember, is that this guy, I never questioned the player, but he's an elite player who can do this on each and every week. Now, I want to make it clear, he does still have a very low floor because of that uncertain quarterback play, but because of the ceiling, he needs to be top 5. And I will say this, the Cincinnati matchup against the Pittsburgh Steelers on the surface maybe doesn't sound fantastic, but Thursday night defenses are very, very brutal. They are not good defenses, and by the way, Mike Tomlin's record on Thursday night, not very good. Jamar Chase has had massive games against the Ravens in division. He's had plenty against the Steelers too. So I'm going to go with the fact that maybe Joe Flacco stays upright more this week like he did last week and provides massive upside for Jamar Chase again. Drake London's at 5 and Puka Nacua is at 6, and I'll tell you why he's in here. So Drake London, first and foremost, this guy was everything. Like, outside of obviously Bijan Robinson on Monday night, he was the only receiver, period, end of story, not an exaggeration, that was used in that game versus the Bills. This guy is everything for them. And I don't care if Darnell Mooney comes back this week. He's top 5 for me, but I will say this. There is still risk in this tier, and I think that the risk with Drake London is that this offense isn't as good this week, because I still don't believe fully in Michael Penix. I don't fully believe in the offensive coordinator yet, but San Francisco's defense is reeling with injuries, and they're also just in this position to where if you look at Drake London last week, how could you not put him inside the top 10 or the top 5? So Drake London, to me, just because of the usage, because of the way he popped off, it's another matchup I think is okay for him in fantasy football. And Puka Nacua, I'm going to include him this week because for a couple different reasons. Number one, just to show you guys where he would be ranked if he plays. I don't feel him as a top 5 option this week. The injury is obviously going to factor into his limitations if he does end up playing. He won't be 100% if he does play. And the other thing is that this matchup overseas versus Jacksonville, not an ideal one. Jacksonville's defense already is good in the secondary. And number two, this offense here and every offense is not done well overseas. No offense does well overseas. We've seen it all year, and for years previous, offenses that go overseas, they're sluggish, they're flat, they're unprepared, they're slow. That's just the way it goes. So I proved a point by putting him in here to show you guys I don't view him as the number one option this particular week. And the number two reason I put him in here is because he's viewed as day-to-day. This is a day-to-day injury, and he avoided major injury with this ankle situation. So I don't love him this week. If he plays, you obviously have to play him because he's getting a massive target share, and he's so important to the offense. Dropping down to our next tier, I've got Justin Jefferson at 7, above George Pickens at 8. And obviously what this does is it factors in if CeeDee Lamb plays. If CeeDee doesn't play, Pickens is a top 3 guy. But the fact that I think CeeDee could play this week is going to bump Pickens down below JJ because JJ's coming off a bye week and they're playing a defense that is reeling right now. Philadelphia got embarrassed. And honestly, it was an embarrassment to that entire organization, the way they got pushed around by the Giants on Thursday night. So they're coming off a mini bye week, but the Vikings are coming off a full bye week, and Quinyon Mitchell is injured and was injured in that game. So Justin Jefferson, we obviously know the playmaking ability there. But what it comes down to is if it's J.J. McCarthy or Carson Wentz. Now, as of right now, it kind of looks like Carson Wentz again, which I like for Justin Jefferson. But if it's J.J. McCarthy, he's going to bump down in these rankings. George Pickens at 8 versus Washington. Matchup is fantastic. And at this point, if he plays with CeeDee Lamb, I think he's got the lower floor, but just as high of a ceiling. I was wrong on Pickens in the offseason. This guy is tremendous right now, and he's going to continue to be because he's fighting for a contract, and he wants to earn every penny of that contract, which probably is going to be a $100 million deal this year. But George Pickens against the Washington Commanders, it's a matchup I want. Dak Prescott and him are showing good chemistry, so even if CD is back, he's still a top 10 guy. Rashee Rice, the return is here at number 9, and Davante Adams is at 10. Now listen, I don't think we're going to see peak Rashee Rice this week. I want to make it clear, this is a conservative ranking of Rashee Rice. He could be top 5 in a lot of weeks. I think what we'll see this week is a work back into type of game. Maybe 5 to 7 targets in this one, just to get him rolling in his new role, which is going to be their wide receiver 1. But Rashee Rice, I don't expect a massive full game workload. But that being said, the matchup against the Raiders, the offense, the way it's clicking right now, it's all there. The pieces are there for the ceiling to be executed on, which is a top, 25 points in full PPR. But I will say, not my favorite one to play him in because it's the first game back in over a year at this point. So Rashee Rice at this point is going to be conservatively ranked at number 9, but I play him over Davante Adams. And the reason why is very similar to what I highlighted with Puka. If Puka plays, Davante Adams is the wide receiver 2. Him and Matt Stafford have shown a little bit off the past couple of weeks. And the other problem is that, again, the matchup I don't love overseas in this game because all offenses, you have to basically bump them down when they're playing overseas. And if you don't believe me, just watch that Broncos-Jets game. That was atrocious. So I do worry about this one. And honestly, this is a perfect one to post as a start-sit poll on fsroundup.com. I'll do it right now. I'll look up Davante Adams and then go to chat and go to start a poll for week 7 and add Rashee Rice in here. And I'm very curious what the result is going to be. It's completely free to vote on this poll I just made, and it's also completely free to start your own poll as well. And in addition, if you want access to my full top 250 rankings on a weekly basis, you can use that by getting a premium subscription at fsroundup.com. Not only does it support me as a channel, it also supports us in our efforts, and it's also going to give you tons of value because you're not only getting the rankings on a weekly basis, which are up to date except for running backs, quarterbacks, and tight ends as of now, it's also going to give you the automatic waiver wire tool to utilize and several other advanced features because the last thing you want and I want is for you to end up looking like a guy like this after the season.
This is Ted. Look at him. Ted desperately needs to pick up a new running back, or his fantasy team is toast. for the third year in a row. And losing his season again means one thing. Don't be Ted. Use Fantasy Football Roundup to automate your waiver pickups and rest easy this season. Huh. Look at him.
Now, dropping down to our next tier right here, it's a little bit of a smaller tier, but I've got Rome Odunze at 11 and Nico Collins at 12. So with Rome Odunze, it was a massive disappointment on Monday night versus Washington. It was a beatable matchup, but it really came down to one thing that I had always been concerned with Caleb, which is that Caleb Williams has always been, you look back to college, he's a spread it around type of guy. He very rarely hones in on a wide receiver one. So the fact that he did the first several games with Rome definitely shows that he prefers Rome as the number one, which is why he's going to stick in the top 12, because the upside of this offense right now is way higher than we're ever used to in Chicago Bears offense, and the matchup versus New Orleans is another good one. So yes, I think Rome still is top 12. And Nico Collins at 12 at the Seattle Seahawks, if it weren't this bad of a matchup, he wouldn't be this low, but I think this matchup is brutal. Seattle's defense is tough, both on the front and the back end, and Nico Collins is clearly their best option. So the fact that they came off a bye week, I'm encouraged by, but this pass rush, man, I'm worried for CJ Stroud in this game and his ability to find Nico Collins. So yes, the ceiling is high like it always is, but the floor with Nico Collins is probably around 6 to 10 points, which is not ideal, but because of that ceiling, he's got to stick inside the top 12. And Mike Evans is at 13 to round out this tier at the Detroit Lions. The matchup is obviously fantastic. Detroit's defense is looking so similar to how it looked last year. Their entire defense is going down, decimated with injuries. Now you get Brian Branch suspended for a game. This defense is wide open to take advantage of. And if Mike Evans comes back this week, he's a top 15 guy. And I don't know if he's coming back. Very similar to CeeDee Lamb we're projecting here. And obviously, if he doesn't come back, it's going to bump up other guys that we might talk about later inside the top 15 potentially. Because the way Baker's playing right now, he's out of his mind, and you want a receiver option in that offense. Mike Evans' ranking at 13 is as simple as that right now. Dropping down to our next tier, Jalen Waddle's at 14, and Brian Thomas Jr. is at 15. So with Jalen Waddle at the Cleveland Browns, the matchup is not my favorite necessarily, but I think that Jalen Waddle has separated himself enough in this Miami offense to where he's clearly the number one threat, not only as a target, but also down the field as well. And Tua has been bad, but he's been good enough to supply good options as fantasy pass catchers with him and with Darren Waller. So I think that Jalen Waddle is going to continue to do well as long as they continue to function as an offense. And I don't care if Mike McDaniels is there or not. I actually kind of prefer it, to be honest with you, for fantasy football purposes, because this offense does have creative upside still and can still get the playmakers the ball in their hands. And Brian Thomas Jr. at 15 at the Los Angeles Rams overseas game. Again, you don't want to play options in this matchup as much as you would like to if they were not overseas. But I will say this, the one thing Jacksonville has on their side, they play multiple overseas games per year. This is kind of the designated overseas team in the NFL, as I do with most other teams in the league. But Brian Thomas Jr., the main thing and why he's up at 15 is because of the chemistry that's starting to emerge with Trevor Lawrence. Now, he's not perfect yet. He's still dropping passes, and he's still not, completely executing on everything, but the target share has been there. It's been there all year. It's still there today, and it's going to be there tomorrow against the Los Angeles Rams. Ladd McConkey's at 16, and DK Metcalf is at 17. So Ladd McConkey shoots up the rankings. Quentin Johnston misses time on Sunday, and Quentin Johnston opens up a major opportunity for Ladd McConkey, and he takes advantage of it. Here's the reality with this one. If Quentin Johnston comes back, Ladd McConkey is not going to be as great of a play as he was last week because it's another target to worry about. And I'll be honest with you, this is a with Quentin Johnston ranking right here. Without Quentin Johnston, he's in the top 12 potentially because this offense, the bottom line remains this. With Justin Herbert, you want a wide receiver attached to that guy. And that's the bottom line. So versus Indianapolis, not the most ideal matchup, but if it is going to be Ladd without Quentin Johnston or with Quentin Johnston, he's going to still be the best play in fantasy football to me in this particular week on that Los Angeles Chargers team. That's just the bottom line. DK Metcalf at 17 at the Cincinnati Bengals. The matchup couldn't be better, and it's on Thursday night. The one thing that keeps bothering me with DK is his target share has been out of whack, and number two, when he gets the targets, they're not always there. Like Aaron Rodgers overthrew him on a deep pass the other day. DK Metcalf has dropped plenty of passes this year. So like they're still not clicking entirely, but he's become such a touchdown threat for this offense because he's their clear number one by far. So it's like you have to put him in the top 20. But I do worry about this because I don't think that I think there's something missing with his chemistry with Aaron Rodgers, and they're still trying to figure it out so far. So I've got him at 17 for that reason. Ted McMillan's at 18, and Cortland Sutton is at 19. And I got to tell you, Ted McMillan kind of emphasized a lot of my concerns with him this past week. He got in the end zone twice. If I would have told you that, you didn't know the score, you'd figure Ted McMillan had well over 20 points in a full PPR format. That actually wasn't the case because the guy's target share, it actually dipped. And his efficiency dipped as well. So Ted McMillan is this guy where it's like, you want to buy in because the targets have been there. Then he gets in the end zone and he doesn't do that particularly well as you would think as a guy who just got 2 touchdowns should do. It's just the offense, man. I still don't trust Carolina's offense. It's a matchup that I like against the New York Jets. They're a reeling team right now, and I don't think their defense is any good. But at the same time, I can't rank him much higher than this while Bryce Young is still there. It's just the reality of the situation. And Cortland Sutton at 19 versus the Giants. Listen, I want to rank Cortland Sutton higher than this because I don't take last week against the Jets as a referendum on who Sutton is as a fantasy player and who Bo Nix is as a quarterback. Because Bo was terrible and Sutton really wasn't targeted that many times. But the one thing I will say with this, there's a huge power in momentum and confidence, and that's what the Giants have right now. I would not be shocked if the Giants came in and made the Denver offense look flat again because there's something clearly not right with Denver's offense, and I can't put my finger on it. And so with the Giants coming to town off a major win with lots of confidence, I do worry about the potential that Denver could get upset, number one, and number two, just not be that efficient in fantasy football again. But that being said, he's still clearly the wide receiver one with the best ceiling and the best upside. Dropping down to our next tier. Quentin Johnston, like I said, is factored in, so I've got him at 20, and I've got Michael Pittman Jr. at 21. Now, with Quentin Johnston, again, if he plays, I would rather play Ladd because who knows if he's going to be 100%. But I do know this, if he plays, he's going to get plenty of opportunities down the field because that's how they use the guy, and obviously, Justin Herbert is great. So that is very, very simple on why he's ranked here at 20 because the upside is still very high. And then with Michael Pittman Jr. at 21 in the same matchup at Los Angeles Chargers, the matchup is fine. I don't have a problem with the matchup. What became an issue, and this has really been under the surface the whole time, but it's been there, is the fact that he doesn't get that many targets on a per-game basis. Last week, he didn't get in the end zone, and you noticed it. That's the problem with Pittman is that he needs to get in the end zone, but he had been doing that so consistently, it felt right to keep him in the top 15. Now I can't do that because I saw him outside of the end zone in a 30-plus point scoring game for the Colts last week, and now it worries me. So I've got him at 21, but he's still a very, very solid wide receiver 2 option in fantasy. Terry McLaurin's at 22, and Ricky Pearsall's at 23. 2 injured guys, I'm projecting play. Now with Terry McLaurin, he's missed a lot of time, and I've heard there's possibility that he plays in this game. So if he does play, I want him in the matchup at Dallas. But again, you can't overrank him too high based on the fact that he's missed tons of time with this injury right here. So I want to play Terry McLaurin, but at the same time, I don't want to play over guys like Quentin Johnston, maybe Cortland Sutton, maybe Ted McMillan or DK Metcalf, because the guy's been injured for weeks now. And it's been reported as a very complex injury to him as well. So I like him. I love the matchup, obviously, but I don't love the opportunity in the first week back necessarily. And Ricky Pearsall, very similar. The guy's missed several games now versus Atlanta. You think that he's going to be the wide receiver 1 upon arrival. But if it's Mac Jones, that chemistry that he has with Kendrick Bourne, that's real, and it comes from New England. So Ricky Pearsall as the wide receiver 1 in San Francisco, not a set in stone deal. But if it's Brock Purdy, I trust that one more. And Brock Purdy could play in this one. Again, completely projecting. We're going to have to see what the injury report looks like today. But at 23 is where I feel comfortable in a good matchup versus the Atlanta Falcons. Deebo Samuel's at 24 and A.J. Brown is at 25, makes his return to the top 30. So Deebo Samuel at 24, listen, I had to move him down because I think clearly something is not right. Like, he's playing through injury, but he's clearly injured. And we saw that massively against the Chicago Bears. So in this matchup against Dallas, again, all signs point go. Green means go. Like, if he was fully healthy, he'd be in my top 12. But it's clear to me that he's not fully healthy. Maybe he even misses this game because he does not look right. That heel is definitely becoming an Achilles heel for fantasy teams like myself that had him in our lineups for several weeks straight. He's been great, but this is an injury problem right now, and it's been the story of Deebo's career, so we've got to keep an eye on this one this week. A.J. Brown at 25 to round out this tier at Minnesota. The matchup is not ideal, but listen, A.J. Brown proved something to me last week that I didn't know existed. He actually is a solid floor. Like, last week was not a ceiling game. It could have been. He should have been in the end zone because Jalen Hurts missed a clear opportunity over the middle of the field. A.J. Brown, though, came out with like 8 targets in that game and 6 catches. He did fine. He had like 14 fantasy points in a full PPR format. So I'm not discouraged with A.J. Brown based off last week. It's clear that they want to get him the ball and they want to make him happy. It's just clearly not working and something's not right. So I can't put him much higher than this. Dropping down to our last tier, Sterling Shepard of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers is the featured guy in Tampa Bay's wide receiver room. So Sterling Shepard at Detroit, again, matchup is fantastic. We covered it with Mike Evans. The reason I like Sterling Shepard more than I like Tez Johnson, who got in the end zone last week, is because of the chemistry with Baker Mayfield. Look, if you look at all those guys' targets last week, it was very spread out. Baker spread the ball out quite a bit. But the one thing that I always lean towards in my ranking process is chemistry if there is some developed prior to an NFL game. With Sterling Shepard and Baker, they've got the Oklahoma chemistry coming out of college. That matters, man. It matters a lot. And Sterling Shepard, for that reason, is my guy in Tampa that I would want besides Mike Evans if he plays. Chris Olave at 27 at the Chicago Bears is in this position to where you just have to acknowledge the guy has a steady enough target share to be a very safe flex play. Now, that's the only thing you could really say because even with the amount of targets that he gets, you know that that floor is way higher than that ceiling is high because the ceiling is not high. It's very low. The ceiling maybe is 17 points. I mean, we haven't seen it yet. Like, the problem is not the targets. The problem is the offensive efficiency is as good as it can be, and it's just sad knowing that because it's not that high. Like, they don't have that much upside with Spencer Rattler, with the talent they have there. Chris Olave is still not that great of a player. At Chicago Bears, the matchup is fine. I don't mind it, but I do know this. He can be played because of that easy target share that's very consistent. Jamison Williams is at 28, and Jordan Addison is at 29. 2 big play threats, and Jamison Williams revived himself after I called him a buy low. Get that. So Jamison Williams comes in versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The matchup is ideal. We covered it with Amon-Ra St. Brown. But Jamison Williams also had a little something to prove as well. He became a little bit of a possession receiver the other night against Kansas City. Do I think that continues on a weekly basis? No. I think Amon-Ra St. Brown is that guy. But in a matchup like this, where there's tons of points on the board, I want an option in this matchup, and Jamison Williams can break off a massive play at any given point in the game, and especially against Tampa's defense. Jordan Addison at 29, coming off the bye week, and listen, for many weeks straight, I did nothing but doubt Jordan Addison, and he's done nothing but prove me wrong. Jordan Addison is a really good wide receiver, too, in the NFL. Now, with the quarterback situation, it's still not a comfy play. This is still a high upside flex option who can get you 20 points. He can. But the reality is I don't trust this quarterback play enough. I think Philly could figure some things out over an extended, basically mini bye week. But Jordan Addison at this point, if you're not at least considering him as a high-end flex option, you need to reshift the thinking because I had to do that myself. Just look at the guy's first couple of games back. And then Keenan Allen stayed at 30. Now, I'll give you a couple hints since we have several guys who may not play inside the top 30. Xavier Worthy's my wide receiver, 31. Stephon Diggs is 32, Devonta Smith is 33, and Wan'Dale is 34. Now, the reason I put Keenan above all those guys is because I think his workload and his target share is the most steady. Like, even if you look back to last week, Keenan Allen still has targets. He's still important in the offense, and the matchup, again, I think when you have Justin Herbert at quarterback, matchup doesn't matter that much. But I will say this, Keenan Allen is an older player who may just be slowing down. So I will play him over those guys that I just mentioned because of steady target share, but I will say this, not a safe play.